Alright, so to bore all of you with some details, it's 1:25 Monday morning. I don't have school today, so I'm up very late. I was messing around with GarageBand a bit, trying to make an intro, and now I've decided that since the one I did make was just too annoying to actually use as an intro, I'd use it for this video. As you can tell from the intro, I will be talking to you about dial-up and how it can be applied in the modern world. In some of the... too tired. In some areas of the country, unfortunately, we still have to use dial-up. Thankfully, I haven't used dial-up since 2003, and that's simply because I pretty much couldn't use anything but dial-up. Up until 2004, so I was probably using dial-up until then, actually. Up until 2004, I was using this IBM Aptiva E-Series desktop. Very nice, actually. Very reliable, at least. And then in 2004, we finally upgraded to a Dell Dimension 4700, and with that came high-speed internet. Now, in the early 2000s, we actually had trouble with dial-up because we didn't have a splitter cable for the phone jack, and so we would be cutting off phone connection to use dial-up, and that may sound typical, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. Especially, it would be now, for sure. And honestly, I don't see dial-up as having any application in the modern world. Unless your internet usage is so minimal that it doesn't matter, and you'd rather only pay like $10 a month, or you live in a very rural area, and that's all you can get, you really shouldn't have dial-up. One of the authors of an article on Low-End Mac, which is a website that I love and I recommend you check out, one of the authors there, I believe they still use dial-up because they live in a not so technologically kind area, and they still haven't gotten high-speed internet. But that article was probably written a couple years ago, so I would hope that by now, at the end of 2010, they would have the ability to run Ethernet and utilize that. Now, as I say, like, your internet usage is so minimal, I actually do mean that, because until 2003, 2004, when I was still using dial-up, what was I loading? Text-based pages, you know? Because the world wasn't so graphically enhanced, the internet. I think one of the most frequented websites that I did was cheat code websites, and you know, if you're loading a 26 kilobyte FAQ that's entirely text, dial-up's still going to perform. But if I were to try to use what's a really bloated website, if I were trying to use my yearbook with dial-up, it wouldn't load, I wouldn't think. You could probably load a mobile version of it if you really cared enough to. And then, since we're on the subject of internet, and I'm going to get into internet speed, I've assumed that gigabit Ethernet is just automatically superior to 10 or 100 base T internet, but from what I can tell, gigabit Ethernet, despite sounding better, it's technically not. You're not going to see 10 or 100 times better performance with it, because it all depends on your slowest device. If your router or modem don't support anything higher than 10 or 100 base T, your gigabit Ethernet port in the back of your computer is not going to do you any good. Likewise, if you have a wireless router that talks about 300 megabit per second connection, but your ISP only supports up to like 130, it's going to rely on your slowest device, and in this case, that would be your internet service provider. Like usual, I'll try to get another video in tomorrow and at the latest Wednesday, since I'm trying to keep to a beginning of the week schedule.